Hi, I'm Cody with GraceBased. On season 2 of the GraceBased podcast, you're going to hear from Aaron and Dana Daly. They're good friends of mine, and they are going to share with you a vision for how to talk to your kids about sex through a grace-based lens. I am so excited. As a father of 4, my wife and I are constantly having this conversation. We want nothing more than for our kids to grow up with a full vision of the idea of what it means to understand sex, relationships, marriage, and the goodness of how God created us in our bodies. And I'm so excited to share this with you, so go check it out.
All right, so on this next episode, what we're going to talk about is conversation. So I think the way most people have this conversation with their kid is through commands. So they just sit there and they give commands to their kids. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Because commands feel safer and they feel like you're doing the teaching as a parent. And sometimes as a parent, we think it's our job to just list out the rules, right, make a chart, rather than have a conversation which leads our kids to understanding. Now, you do a good job at talking to kids because you love talking to kids. But a lot of adults feel really uncomfortable talking to kids. So give us some advice. How do you talk to kids?
I think there's really important things that we overlook really quick. And I think that's a lot of times we treat kids like they're just not that smart. And the wild thing is a lot of them are a lot smarter than we are. yeah, we give them credit. That's nice. We give them credit for it. But even starting to start those conversations young in ways that are just talking to them. It's not a big sit down. We have to have this deep conversation. It's little things like being able to use proper words and talk to kids at 2 and 3 when their words are developing. That's when they're developing, speaking and using words and being able to talk to them and listen to them. I think another massive thing that we miss, especially in these conversations, is being good listeners. And I don't think that just means we sit and you can talk and talk and talk and talk and I just listen. It's being able to listen and hear them at the age that they're at. So it's really easy to go, you're saying this wrong, you understand this wrong, you're doing this wrong, instead of going, no, I'm talking to a 9-year-old in a 9-year-old world. And maybe the way they're describing something is kind of dead on, but it's from their perspective in their world. So being a listener, not just to hear, but to recognize where they're at and how they express things and how they define things. And we can help them understand and articulate better down the road. But first is just being a really good listener.
Listening is big in Scripture. It's really the posture of every Christian to have a discipline to learn how to listen. But when you're listening to children specifically, it becomes more difficult because there tends to be like, hey, when you get a better language and when you can talk better, rather than how do I listen to them? This also changes the way, listening changes the way we think about God. Because in our prayer lives, so often we think, I got to pray really good. I really have to know what to say and how to say it. But the better way of approaching our prayer is when God says, here's confidence that you can have when you pray, is that I hear you. The burden now comes on the parent that we need to learn to listen and hear what our kid is saying, because they have things that are going on in their hearts that we're not going to fully understand unless we're. So that's a hard practice to learn to listen, because it does force you to have to slow down at a different pace. Commands, you can kind of just go, do this, do this, do this, and I told you. But listening forces you to have to slow down, and kids can get distracted easy. They have all kinds of other things. They may say silly stuff they don't understand. So we do encourage in this to see it more as a conversation rather than a one-time talk that you just sit there and lay out 5 steps to remain pure until you're married or whatever. But a conversation, opening up the conversation by, hey, what do you already know? So I know if some parents didn't start early enough, their kids may already know all kinds of things that they didn't teach them.
Sure.
And so we just taught a class last week on this. And the first question that's always asked is, I feel like I'm too late. One
Right.
mom was in tears.
Yeah.
I'm too late. My kid's 17 years old.
Well, and I'm too late. And everything that we were sharing at that
Yes.
point of like not sharing out of your own fear. There was a quick recognition of, I've only raised my kids in
That's right.
fear.
That's
And
right.
now they're 17. What do I do now?
What do I do
It's
now?
too late. Like
I'm
I have
too
to
late.
just deal with it.
And it's amazing when I said, hey, let's lower the anxiety. First of all,
Yeah.
grace is never too late.
Right.
You have an opportunity, even as a 17-year-old kid. I know it feels too late. You have an opportunity to go and, here's something that parents don't do, to apologize. To say, man, I am so sorry that I never had this conversation with you. I didn't even know what to say. Sharing your fears and anxieties. And now as I'm learning new things, I'd love to ask, what do you already know? But it does require you to have to listen to your teenager, which does show how important conversation is, because there's other things like nonverbal communication that plays into a conversation, meaning your kids are not just looking at what you're saying, they're actually looking at how you're responding.
And we're quick to point out when a kid gives us
Yeah, that's
a dirty
true.
look or
That's
an
right.
attitude.
Yeah, what's that attitude
Yeah.
for? Yeah, exactly.
But not returning that same thing of going, what am I showing you with my body?
So when you go to the conversation, if you bring all of your anxieties and
Right.
fears, or you're hurt if they did something wrong, or if they say something wrong, or if there's shock
Yeah.
on your face because they're doing something that you don't approve of,
Yeah.
all of that gets translated by them.
Right. I would say even on the flip, that sometimes we want to have a poker face when our kids do something that is just, it breaks our heart. And I don't know that that's great.
Right.
I know we had a situation with one of our kids and he had made bad choices and we were sitting in front of him and all I could do was just cry. And I know that was right. I know that he needed to see that we love him
Right.
and we're going to walk through this with him.
Yeah.
But man, these choices, they affect not just you.
Yeah.
And let's talk about who else they affect.
That's
So I
right.
think it's on both sides. It's not just a matter of don't show any emotion
Not stoic.
and be
right.
caring and loving, but also, yeah, it's okay for them to see. And even the parent that talked about fear, it's okay to go back and apologize and also go, hey, we're going to keep learning. So just kind of be patient with us as we're patient with you.
Active listening is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning if you're on your phone or if you're texting or if you're doing something else, especially in conversations like this, they're going to feel like, well, they're not even listening to me.
Right.
Active listening, nonverbal communication, good questions. And so in our resource that we give, we're trying to give good questions.
Yeah.
And if you don't ask those good questions, it will feel like you're just giving all these answers rather than really wanting to hear from the kids that are there. And I think if we treat our kids as image bearers of God who are people,
Yeah.
who need to be heard,
Yeah.
they need to be seen, and they need to be loved, and they need to experience that, it will allow for us to change the way we have this conversation. It's funny that this stuff is simply just good communication skills.
Right. And from early age.
Yeah.
It's not just getting to be a good communicator when they're a good communicator.
Right.
Now we can have a good conversation. It's starting those conversations, good conversations when they're little and they're learning to talk, because then you're setting that foundation of we can talk about anything and it's okay and it's safe and you can ask me questions and I can ask you questions. And I think that's another big thing with teenagers. And this is when I work with teenagers all the time, every day. And one of my favorite things right now is when they say something that I don't understand, because I want to understand what they're saying and not blow it off because it's some slang I don't get it, but be able to go, hold on, and I'll pull out my phone to my notes page and go, okay, hold on, how do you spell that? Tell me what that means. Explain that to me. And they laugh at me, but they also love to help me define things. and understand things because I'm taking initiative to go, how you talk is important.
Right.
I'm not going to be little and say it's stupid.
Right.
I say it this way, it's the right way. But to be able to go, no, explain it to me, help me understand. And then have those conversations in a way that they feel valued the way they are, the same way that we talked about grace earlier. Like God accepted me the way I was, didn't expect me to have it together. So kind of doing that same thing of just going, explain to me your words. I love this.
Yeah. This conversation allows for us then to drag it out. So a lot of parents want to know the perfect time to have the conversation. Our hope is that we develop a lifelong journey for you to say this conversation should be had throughout their whole life. We do give some suggestions. I would just say the suggestions are not rules. They're honestly just a guideline, if you will, to say we think you should start as soon as possible, because that's the number one question. So Dana, I'm going to ask you what every parent asks you. How soon should you start this conversation?
This is my favorite question. I don't think there's a too soon. I don't think there's a too soon. And like we said, there's not a too late. Right. But I think these conversations can start as early as when they're learning words. Simple things like when we're talking about body parts, we joke in my house, I had very silly names for our body parts and my kids hated them and I thought they were hilarious. And that's fine. But also they need to know what the proper words are. Right. If we're taking those proper words and telling them at young ages when they're not weird. At that age, those are just the words for those things. Then it takes away kind of the awkwardness of saying those words as they get older and older when they talk to mom and dad. So that we know even at little ages, we're starting to use proper terms. As you're learning words, you're going to learn the right words. And as they get a little bit older and you start talking about your bodies, you're talking about their bodies in truth. You need to understand the beauty of how God created our bodies. How cool it is that this works this way and that works that way. And so even at young ages, you're starting those conversations without it being the talk or the sex talk. You're starting with your body and how proper it is so that when you get to those more challenging conversations, it's not awkward to talk about body parts. It's not awkward to talk about what's going on because we've kind of always talked about these things with mom and dad and it doesn't feel weird. So when you say, when do we start talking to them? I say you should always be talking to them about a lot of these things. When you're talking about the actual talk, I think every parent has to know their kid. And I think that's the beauty of, again, reflecting our parent when it comes to God. He's a good parent. He knows when we need anything and gives it to us at that time. And I think it's the same thing with us and our parenting. We have to recognize, be prayerful about when to have this talk. I know each one of our kids, it was like around the same ages. And we have 5. So it was around the same ages, but it was different based on where that kid was at that time. For our oldest, it was a little later because he was older and there was a lot that hadn't been introduced to him. And our youngest was a lot earlier because she's been in the family a lot longer and heard a lot of the conversations. So I feel like each kid, it has to be when you know this is the time to have the conversation that they can handle because they're at that place that they need to hear it and they need to start being able to handle it.
So we would say in the earliest ages when they're learning to talk, 2 to 3, we should be having conversations about being created in the image of God, their bodies being unique and special, also explaining real words for their body parts that aren't filled with shame. Yeah. So 2 to 3 in that. 4 to 6, they're going to start hearing more and more. The conversations should probably start ramping up into...
because that's when they're cognitive learning.
Yeah, they're starting to learn some things in that. You could get as clear as even introducing, as they're hearing different language, introducing some of the broken language, and we will, cover that in other sessions. But ramping up the conversation probably earlier than you want to, you should have a direct, we're going to have a good way to put it. Conversation.
Earlier than you want to.
Meaning, I know we want to leave room for you as parents to pray, but we see our kids as innocent for so long that we miss our window often. Yeah. Probably now in our culture and context, by the time they're going to school, they're having all kinds of conversations
Even
with
if they're not
friends.
having the conversations, they're
Yes.
hearing things.
They're hearing it with TV, with the internet, with all the things that are taking place. So our encouragement as parents, be the first voice, be the first person they run to.
Yeah.
Try to, as best as possible, be the one introducing the conversation rather than always trying to correct what other people are saying.
Yeah.
So earlier than you want to, probably in the range of 8 to 13, that window is so precious. You want to make sure. And so you know your kids. We know that you see their distinction. We had one of our kids that we sat and talked with, and they're like, we get into the conversation and we say, do you want to talk more about this? And they're like, no, I didn't. I don't really want to. So we were like, okay, we can wait.
Yeah.
We have time.
Yeah.
Or there was one, by the time we had the conversation, even super young, they already know more than we even realized.
Yeah.
So each kid is very different, but be aware of getting into the conversation early.
And that part of the conversation, when it does get deeper, when it is about for us and it's in the information that we give, being able to discuss the reproductive organs and those things, there's a really particular time that you want to get to them if you can't. I mean, if you can, it's great. It is during puberty. Obviously, if we can talk to them before those things hit, then we're able to get them prepped and ready so that when their body's changing, we're able to celebrate those changes and it not be embarrassing and shameful and scary. But this is amazing. Look what your body can do now. And I think it's really important to know too in these conversations how important your voice is as a parent. A lot of times we think our kids don't listen to us, they don't hear us. There's been study after study after study done. I love doing research on this particular study of the power of a parent's voice. And that no matter how much we don't think they hear us, the truth is we are the loudest voice in their lives from day one until they die. Like they will always have our voice as the one that carries so much weight. And obviously the older they get, other voices are allowed, but we always carry a weight as parents. And I think a lot of times the assumption is they don't listen to me. It's a waste of time. That's why people would ask me to do it for them because they don't even think their kids listen to them. When in fact, man, your voice is the most important and valuable at this age, especially.
This is why we want to work with parents.
Yeah.
Because they have the most important voice in their children's life. And last that we would think of when it comes to a conversation, you have their whole life to have this conversation, hopefully. Meaning, get into it early for sure, but don't put the pressure on having it right away. I mean, having it a one time that you would have the privilege of walking with them. Scripture says, here's how you disciple your kids with the gospel. Here's how you tell them the stories of the gospel. Since Deuteronomy, God has been giving his people this pathway, saying when they get up in the morning, talk to them. When you eat with them, talk to them. And when you go to bed at night, talk to them. This is important to know. Use the small, mundane moments, not just creating like a classroom that they have to sit in and like be taught. They're sitting in classrooms and in services and all these kinds of watching entertainment all the time. With you, it should just feel natural. It should feel mundane. It should feel like the very small seeds that you're getting to plant in their life, because you're not just trying to put on a show for them with this conversation. You're really wanting to change the landscape of their whole life. And that requires you planting seeds, watering those seeds, and allowing it to grow over time. You got to have patience with this. When you do it, our encouragement is not to have some big spectacular type of thing that you put on. Like, make it in the small moments of life. Maybe when you're driving in your car, or when you take them out to a meal and sit with them. Or maybe you're walking along the road and you have the conversation there, or when you're putting them to bed and there's these so they don't feel overwhelmed with anxiety, like, oh man, this is a big conversation. This should feel like a natural part of their lives. Be intentional. Prepare for it, get ready for it, have these conversations often and inviting them into it, but don't put so much pressure on one talk, the talk.
Right.
What about a whole life of conversations, discipling them and inviting them? Because maybe it's not you even initiating it. The goal would be at some point they come and talk to you and ask questions to you, especially if you've created this environment where this is a common thing.
Yeah.
They won't feel weird by saying, I need to come and have this conversation with my parents. They'll feel like that's just natural. I do that.
Yeah,
they've talked to me and we've been talking about it. Exactly. So we're really trying to teach people not just the structure of one talk. We're trying to teach you as parents to have ongoing conversations and discipleship with your kids, creating an environment where they know they can come to you and they don't feel like it. And not that you're just keeping rules, but you're listening and having conversation so that this carries into other areas of life. So yeah, this is beautiful to have as a part of a sex conversation for sure. But what would it be like if this was the environment of your home, where conversation and community and eating together and having these conversations was just a natural part, and you do it in very, very strategic and intentional, but small ways that are seeds planted over time. Because most parents we run into just feel weights of anxiety. So here's what I would say: just breathe. Drag it out. Be willing to humble yourself and listen. And the last thing I would say, and we'll end this section, is this: you don't have to be an expert. Like, you do not have to be an expert on this. Nobody is, and things are changing so much. So if your kids ask you a question and you don't know the answer,
it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. And actually, it's humbling to say, man, I'm sorry, I don't know that. Let's learn it together. That's okay. To say, this is something I'm learning too. I didn't even know this. And when we as adults start to mature, we start getting out of touch with even new things that are coming out. And you're always behind the times. And it's okay to say, I didn't want to learn that. I didn't even know about that. And I need to find these things out. And learning stuff together is actually a great way that, okay, we can learn these
communication
together.
too.
It's communication.
Great communication.
Hey, this is Greg from Pasadena, California. GraceBase make free resources for parents thanks to the generosity of listeners like you. To join in the work of transforming generations of families, go to gracebased.com/join.